Chapter 101, 3 Days. Su Muqing's talent was average. Her skills really weren't considered outstanding. If it was based purely on hand speed, then she might not even be better than Tang Ru. But as a pro player, everything that surrounded her was at a high level. Plus, she always accompanied the textbook-level God Yi Shu. As a result, in the knowledge department, Su Muqing was at a very professional level. Unfortunately, leveling in the game's new server simply didn't need such a high-level knowledge. She could only line up in the beginner village to receive the simplest of quests and steal monsters. Fortunately, the new server had already been open for several days. It was also early in the morning, so there weren't that many people. Su Muqing set out rapidly and quickly reached level 5. Compared to Yishu's 2 hours to get to level 7, this was a more ordinary leveling speed in beginner village. While leveling, she once again chatted idly with Yishu when Yishu suddenly replied, "Can you wait a sec? I'm going to switch accounts. I'll add you in a bit." After saying this, Lord Grimm logged out of the game. It turned out that after eating breakfast, Tang Ru was planning on going to sleep. She had started her shift at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, so she wanted to rest for now. In the end, Yishu took her card and said that he was going to help her level. The level on Tang Ru's soft mist was on the low side. Moreover, if she was going to level in the Frost Forest, then soloing at one time would take an hour. And because she was also using Yishu's Lord Grimm to practice, soft mist practically didn't have any time to level. "It's not that I want to help you level. It's that if you level too slowly, wouldn't you be delaying our plan?" Yishu explicitly said. If he had just said, "I'm going to help you level," then how would such a competitive person like Tang Ru agree? Fine then. In the end, Tang Ru reluctantly agreed. Yishu really didn't know whether to laugh or cry. What was his status in the Glory community? For her to reluctantly let him help her train, if this went out, the Glory community would definitely laugh their heads off. After Yishu got onto Soft Mist's account, he added Su Muqing's Cleansing Mist as a friend. "Oh, is this the account of that talented sister you were talking about?" Su Muqing asked. "Yeah," Yishu replied. "Oh, a battle mage. Is she your fan?" Su Muqing asked. "Nope, she's a complete noob and knows nothing at all about Glory. She doesn't know anyone." Yishu told her about the previous day and how Lu Hao tried to attract the sister by acting cool and flaunting his status, but the sister didn't get the message at all. Su Muqing laughed and stamped her feet. She hated how she wasn't able to see Lu Hao's face when he failed to show off his status. The two chatted like this while leveling up until Yishu felt a strong killing intent from behind him. "Hey, good morning boss." Yishu turned his head to say hi. "Are you really planning on crazily playing like this every day?" Chen Guo was helpless. She kept mentioning this every day and she herself was starting to feel annoyed. "But isn't this guy a little too obsessed over this game?" Chen Guo managed the internet cafe, so people who liked to play games were a common occurrence. But Yishu was almost 25 years old without a proper job and yet still only played games. That was a first. This guy couldn't be planning on staying in the internet cafe all his life and playing games forever, right? Chen Guo felt extremely miserable. If there really was someone who would work in the internet cafe for all his life, then how much could she save? But now that she was looking helplessly at such a person, she could only feel that there was no future. He was too good at making her angry. Especially when she saw Tang Ru return all red-eyed. Without even washing her face, she climbed into bed, making Chen Guo feel even more regret. If this guy wanted to ruin himself then whatever, but it looked like he was going to ruin such a beautiful and good girl along with him. She herself had wanted Tang Ru to play Glory, but she didn't want her to play it in such a way. "Is there anything you need, boss?" Yishu asked. "I said, is there any way for you to control how much you play?" Chen Guo really didn't know how else to say it. The person in front of her wasn't a little kid. With such a face, he even looked older than her. What type of tone was she supposed to put on towards him? Chen Guo was confused. "Haha, don't worry about me, boss. I'm well aware of my situation. Yi Shu looked at Chen Guo and felt a bit moved in his heart. Chen Guo trying to stop him obviously wasn't because she felt sorry for the computers or because she was afraid it'd interfere with work. It purely stemmed from her concern for him. For someone to use 10 or more hours every day on a game, no matter who looked at it, they would all feel that it definitely wasn't a healthy living style. Although Chen Guo often glared and scowled, it was actually because her character was very good. Really? Chen Guo said, surprised. She actually saw such a serious expression on this guy's face. Really? Yi Shu nodded his head repeatedly. Okay, then take care of yourself. Chen Guo didn't say anything more. They were both adults. Yi Shu's words already made it clear that he was taking responsibility for himself, so she could only stop when she should stop. Chen Guo wasn't the type of person to hold up a "for your own good" banner and wantonly criticize people. Yi Shu once again leveled until noon and brought Soft Mist up to level 21. Su Mucheng made even faster progress. She had only just started on her new account in the morning, but had already reached level 13. It's about time for you to sleep, right? Yi Shu hadn't yet told Su Mucheng yet, when she asked him the question first. Yup. I'm going to sleep for a bit. I have to get up again at night for my night shift. You should continue leveling. You don't need to match with my work and rest, Yi Shu said. You don't have to worry about me. You should go to sleep. I'm going to go eat lunch. Su Mucheng sent a smiley face and then went offline. When he woke up from his sleep, it was night again. And Tang Ru was on the afternoon shift. The afternoon shift wasn't the time when there were the most customers, but there were still quite a few. As a result, she didn't have much free time. Soft Mist just stood there. In 1 hour, she stood around foolishly for 45 minutes while Tang Ru called for customers to log in, log out and did this and that. She didn't have any spare time to level. You must be tired, Yi Shu went over to express his sympathies. I didn't level at all, Tang Ru sighed. With such a short amount of time, it'd be better to just study some guides and watch videos to better understand the basic information, Yi Shu said. I guess that's the only way, Tang Ru said. You guys aren't going to sleep again tonight? Chen Guo walked over and asked. Boss, Yi Shu was helpless. He himself was on the night shift. Even if he wanted to, he couldn't. Oh, if I feel sleepy, I'll sleep, Tang Ru said. You should take it easy, Chen Guo said. Don't worry. I'm well aware of my situation, Tang Ru said. Chen Guo coughed blood. You guys are reading from a script, right? What script? Tang Ru stared blankly. Seeing that Chen Guo was glaring at Yi Shu, she turned her head over and saw Yi Shu with a cigarette in his mouth pointed towards the ceiling. They had caught up to the weekends, so the internet cafe was extremely crowded. In the peak hour of the night, Yi Shu went around in a circle but wasn't able to find an open computer in the smoking area. In the end, he fiercely finished smoking a cigarette and then ran to the non-smoking area. When he went online, Cold Knight was the first to find him. Brother, I've found information on all of their equipment. Oh, let me see, Yi Shu said. Cold Knight sent him info on all 5 members. Sure enough, there wasn't any outstanding equipment among them. Each one of them only had a level 25 purple weapon. It was the new server and they were all low-leveled. Who would put in the effort to gather a whole set of purple equipment? No one was willing to go that far even if it was for a new dungeon record. Okay, I got it, Yi Shu replied. Cold Knight saw Lord Grimm's level and felt very depressed. Brother, you level really slowly. It doesn't matter how fast I level. The helpers I found are lower leveled than me, Yi Shu said. Oh, what level? Cold Knight asked. The lowest level is. Su Mucheng wasn't online. Yi Shu opened up her Cleansing Mist's profile and looked at it, level 16. Cold Knight almost coughed a mouthful of blood onto his screen and repelled back. Then how long is it going to take you? Is there still any meaning to setting this new record? Cold Knight didn't say any empty words. In reality, setting new dungeon records had to keep pace with the general player population's levels. For example, if you were put into an old server, where the general player population was at level 70, then if you formed a party to break the Frost Forest record, then it wouldn't attract a lot of eyes. The big guilds were all so competitive for these small dungeons was precisely because the new server's players were all around that level. Everyone was repeatedly running these dungeons, so if you set a new dungeon record at this moment, then it would look very outstanding. Right now, Yishu's lowest level talent was at level 16. If the talent leveled to level 25 slowly and the general player population were level 30, then even if they broke record, it wouldn't be as amazing. Don't worry about it. It'll be done in a few days. Yishu obviously understood this reasoning. 3 days. Is 3 days enough? If you can't set the record in 3 days, then it won't be worth it anymore, Cold Knight said. Okay, Yishu unreservedly promised, within 3 days, your guild will need to send out a level 25 player, preferably a skilled one. Is that possible? Okay, let me see. You have to do it. If not, then when you see that your guild's name is up on the records, but none of the players are from your guild, how embarrassing would that be? Yishu replied. Cold Knight heard this and his heart was once again overcast. That was true. The current members in the party were all put forth by Lord Grimm. To the people that knew, if they saw that none of them were from tyrannical ambition, then that would be quite embarrassing. But it was still better than a different guild's name on the standings at least. Cold Knight thought of this and came out of his confusion. In order to break the Frost Forest record this time, he had already been confused for a very long time. The faster the record came out, the better. It was quickly becoming a source of anxiety. No more, no more, Cold Knight shook his head. He truly didn't want to go analyze the pros and cons of this. I'll just hand over everything to Lord Grimm to hurry up and grab the record. Yishu naturally did his utmost to level up. And of course, after getting off her shift, Tangru didn't go to sleep again. However, there were customers tonight, so she couldn't use the server computer. She randomly found a place to sit and went to clear Frost Forest. Yishu went to check up on her and felt that Tangru had familiarized with it well. He immediately let her use Lord Grimm to clear it once and then caught a hold of Steamed Bun Invasion and the others to get ready to party up and practice the dungeon once together. At this moment, Steamed Bun Invasion had already traded for a level 25 fighter claw. Yishu chose this weapon in particular because this purple weapon added +1 to Strangle. In this battle for the dungeon record, any small detail could affect the results. Strangle was an important skill for the boss. An extra level in the skill could help a lot. In the depths of the night, Su Mucheng was once again quietly online. Yishu had already used up all his entries for Frost Forest. Without asking, he ran to Beginner Village to help Su Mucheng level. Besides Steamed Bun Invasion, Lord Grimm was still considered high-leveled, so his own leveling wasn't important. The most crucial point was to hurry up and drag the lowest leveled player up. 3 days quickly passed. Chapter 102, All-Around Upgrade. In these 3 days, Yishu was busy all over the place. Steamed Bun Invasion, Tangru, Su Mucheng were all arrogant idlers. They were all waiting upon him. The first 2 were mainly for teaching while the last was for leveling. Cold Knight was setting a record for his guild, so he obviously was even more careful with his work. On the first day, he sent a player over to Yishu. He was a level 23 elementalist called Crowd Lover. This name made Yishu a bit speechless. He was seriously suspecting that Cold Knight was trying to ridicule him. As a result, Yishu naturally had another person to instruct. After all, this record couldn't be looked down on. If every aspect of the dungeon wasn't examined properly, then a random mistake could delay their clear by a few seconds, destroying everyone's efforts. But now the entire party had been gathered. On the second day, Su Mucheng's cleansing mist leveled up to level 20. Yishu took the party and began to practice the dungeon. Cold Knight and Endless Night, the 2 leading comrades in the guild, had the honor of watching over them and giving them guidance. When they saw that Yishu's party had 2 girls, the 2 were extremely flabbergasted. Female players in the game were few and experts even fewer. Lord Grimm reportedly said that the players he brought weren't ordinary experts. Yet he had actually brought along 2 girls. How rare of a resource were they? Cold Night and Endless Night muttered to themselves but couldn't come to any conclusion. With regards to the experts that Lord Grim brought, they already had thoughts of winning them over to their guild long ago. But now that they looked, there were unexpectedly girls. If they impatiently went up to get close to them, wouldn't they be mistaken as lecherous spirits? Fortunately, there was still that guy called Steamed Bun Invasion. But this name didn't seem like expert's name at all. Endless Night was sent out by Cold Night and he had no choice but to begin preparing to rope in Steamed Bun Invasion. Tyrannical Ambition's recruitment work in the 10th server was mainly Endless Night's responsibility. Thanks for your hard work everyone, Endless Night greeted, while Cold Night pretended to explain things to Crowd Lover, while listening in on the situation. This person is Tang Ru, and Sumucheng obviously didn't recognize him. The boss, Yishu said. Oh, Sumucheng immediately understood. What boss? Tang Ru, on the other hand, didn't understand. He's the boss that invited us to set a new dungeon record, Yishu said. Tang Ru was still somewhat puzzled. How could she know about these sort of things in the game? Although Steamed Bun Invasion was a noob, he wasn't unfamiliar with games, so he roughly understood what he meant. I'll explain it to you later, Yishu said to Tang Ru. In the end, Endless Night had already chatted with Steamed Bun Invasion. Hey brother, you have an extraordinary aura. Your name is amazing either. From just one look, I can tell that you're a 1 in 10,000 exceptional expert. Endless Night was still as shameless as ever. Ha ha, you have good eyes. What astrological sign are you? Astrological sign. Endless Night didn't know of Steamed Bun Invasion's power. In their first bout, Endless Night had already been blown off into space. Alright Steamed Bun, Yishu immediately went up and shouted at him to stop. He then said to Endless Night, Little cleric, I'll leave you to your work. We're going to enter the dungeon to practice. After this, he called for everyone to enter the dungeon. The remaining Endless Night was still as puzzled as before. Astrological sign? What astrological sign? In the dungeon, Yishu had already explained to Tang Ru, Steamed Bun Invasion, and even the newly added member Crowd Lover how they were going to fight. Moreover, they had already drilled in real combat and all understood it well. As for Su Mucheng, she had been with Yishu for so many years. Her tactics and knowledge were all pro-level. With just a few words of explanation, she had already grasped it. They began to officially clear the dungeon as 5. In 2 days, their official party was able to practice for a total of 8 times. But after these 8 times, every person knew exactly what they were supposed to do. Yishu wasn't able to teach them anything more. In the end, what mattered was how they performed on the scene. From these 8 practice sessions, Yishu determined that after switching for level 25 purple weapons, breaking the record shouldn't be a problem. On the last day, the 5 players all frantically leveled. They estimated that they would all be able to reach level 25 at midnight. Their official battle for the record would also start at this moment. The level 25 purple weapons that each player needed had already been provided by Cold Night. When he asked Yishu if he had any other requirements, Yishu expressed that he hoped that he'd be able to receive 2 mithril pendants in advance. These toys had no value to them. They were just things that female players liked to wear because they looked pretty. Right now, Lord Grimm's party had 2 girls in it, so Cold Night understood him very well. He took 2 mithril pendants and sent them over. Yishu finally had a total of 4 mithril pendants and immediately opened the equipment editor. This time, he disassembled the myriad manifestation umbrella. He took the umbrella's pointed end as well as all of the umbrella ribs and tore them all off. The 4 mithril pendants were smashed into pieces, combined, and then duplicated into a new shiny new umbrella tip. The 24 umbrella ribs were duplicated using the spider teeth that he earned from killing the goblin merchant. After all of the materials were copied, they were once again assembled and installed back into place. He saved the editor and then immediately returned to the game to check the stats. The new tip made from the mithril pendants weren't as unremarkable as before. Now, the tip was red and white, inadvertently flashing rays of light. This time, the myriad manifestation umbrella was upgraded all around. The usual myriad manifestation umbrella form had been upgraded to level 15. The physical attack and the magic attack had been upgraded too. They were now both at 280. The attack speed and weight didn't change. The whole entity had reached level 15, which meant that no matter what form the myriad manifestation umbrella was in, none of them would have attributes below level 15. But Yishu wasn't done yet. After seeing that it had been upgraded all around, he once again opened up the equipment editor. Opening the blueprint for the umbrella's canopy, Yishu took off the 8 midnight cat fingernails he had put on last time. Afterwards, he switched them with the profits from his first deal, 8 white wolf fangs. He returned to the game again and then took the myriad manifestation umbrella and changed it into the battle lance form. The 8 white wolf fangs converged onto the tip, forming an extremely dazzling snow-white lance tip. And now at this moment, the lance's attributes of course changed again. Myriad manifestation umbrella, lance form, level 25. Weight, 2.3 kilograms, durability, 23, attack speed, 5. Physical attack, 380, magic attack, 280. Durability. This was a new attribute. However, this wasn't any special change for the myriad manifestation umbrella. In Glory, level 20 and up equipment had a durability attribute. And those below level 20 didn't have durability. It could be considered a benefit of the beginner village. Even self-made equipment followed this setup. Durability would be depleted in battle and the player had to be careful to not let the durability drop to 0. In Glory, if an equipment's durability fell to 0, then it would immediately break and disappear. Level 50 and up equipment needed special materials to fix. If not, then directly fixing it would reduce the durability limit. If the limit became 1, then the equipment basically became for decoration only. After seeing that the upgrade was successful, Yishu switched back the form. Lord Grimm was still missing some experience before he hit level 25. The battle lance in his hands didn't have any strength right now. When the equipment was finished upgrading and ready to use, the myriad manifestation umbrella's lance form was equivalent to a level 35 purple lance. This was a considerable advantage in damage. Excellent Dynasty's half-pro party obviously didn't have such a strong weapon. Level. The next thing he had to do was level. Before 12 o'clock, the 5 players finally leveled to 25. Then, they did the first task, join Tyrannical Ambition. Lord Grimm had already left Blue Brook Guild 5 days ago. Su Mucheng's Cleansing Mist and Tangru's Soft Mist obviously weren't in a guild. And Steamed Bun Invasion had been specially informed by Yishu, so he wasn't in one either. I welcome you 4 experts to the guild, Endless Night sent a message in the party channel. It looked as if the 4 players really did join the guild. Welcome, welcome, a bunch of guild members sent the message one after the other, showing their guild's friendliness. Outside of Frost Forest, Yishu gave an order, turn off all message channels in order to get rid of any distractions from these. Everyone complied. As Tyrannical Ambition's official member, Crowd Lover couldn't bear seeing his brother's wasted efforts. Before turning all the channels off, he reminded everyone, don't welcome, no one's looking. This message was mixed together with the welcomes. Who knew how many actually saw it? In any case, Crowd Lover also turned off his message channels after sending it. There's still a few minutes. If you have to use the restroom, do it now, Yishu said. It'll just be 10 or so minutes. Su Mucheng felt Yishu was overstating it too much. But with astonishment, Tang Ru saw Yishu stand up from the reception desk and shout to everyone, everyone's fine? If you have something to say it now. I'm going to be busy for a bit. Tang Ru laughed and sent Yishu a message, if the customers really did need something, they wouldn't ask you. Just say your prayers. Really? Then hopefully I'll be lucky, Yishu replied. After a few minutes, midnight arrived and the dungeon entries refreshed. The 5 players weren't careless and entered the dungeon at the same time. Without saying anything, they rushed forward. Pull monsters, Yishu instructed while rushing up. The players following him were Soft Mist and Steamed Bun Invasion. One on the left, one on the right. Behind them, Cleansing Mist also followed along. She had raised her hand and already started firing. Su Mucheng's class was still a launcher. She wasn't Yishu the encyclopedia and was only proficient in this class. Launchers were the class with the most range in Glory. In addition, their normal attacks did a small AoE damage. Su Mucheng's playing was obviously extremely accurate. 2 goblins were blasted and then chased after her. Mid-route, Yi Shu brought Lord Grim forward and slashed, pulling these 2 goblins. Su Mucheng had already controlled Cleansing Mist to fire at another 2 goblins on a different side. The goblins were alarmed and then rushed forward. But this time, Tang Ru pulled these 2. And she fired again to pull monsters, which were then taken up by Steamed Bun Invasion. These 3 players brought along 2 monsters. They killed them while gathering other monsters together, which were blown apart by the storm of spells casted by Crowd Lover. But these 3 weren't just standing there killing monsters, they continued to move forward. Su Mucheng had already let Cleansing Mist continue pulling monsters. 2 monsters in one group. 1 person received one group. In the blink of an eye, they had already pulled 12 goblins. While the party advanced while killing monsters, Su Mucheng never stopped pulling monsters. This method was even more ferocious than one-wave rush. Su Mucheng was the pulling specialist. The other 3 acted as both MTs and DPSers. Moreover, by gathering the monsters into a Crowd Lover who was behind them was able to sufficiently use large AoE spells to kill them. This was a genuine pro-level tactic. Each player in the team had to rely on their own skill to do one aspect. This method could no longer be called one-wave rush. It should be called one-wave push. Chapter 103, There Really Is a Gap. In the blink of an eye, Yi Shu, Tang Ru, and Steamed Bun Invasion had already dragged together 20 or so goblins. Yi Shu's camera angle quickly turned at a speed fast enough to make ordinary people dizzy. He not only had to take care of the goblins he dragged together, but he had to pay attention to the entire situation on the field. He didn't have to worry about Su Mucheng at all. And Tang Ru had a good character, so Yi Shu wasn't afraid that she wouldn't be able to do it, he only afraid that she'd go too far. However, the most worrisome member was Steamed Bun Invasion. This noob's thinking was as vast as the ocean. Ordinary people had no way of figuring out what he was doing. Compared to Su Mucheng, Yi Shu could completely figure out what her mistakes might be. Tang Ru too. But this Steamed Bun Invasion, he had no way of predicting what type of unexpected mistake this guy would make, making Yi Shu feel very cold in his heart. As for Crowd Lover, after a few days of drilling, Yi Shu could tell that this player definitely wasn't new. This player's hand speed might be lower than Steamed Bun Invasion's by a level, but he was much more familiar with the game. He definitely had several years of experience playing Glory. Moreover, this player's role on the team was just to brainlessly output damage. If he didn't do it well, then he would reduce the speed, but he wouldn't bring about any confusion. Currently, the situation could still be considered stable, but this one-wave push method wouldn't have them stop to concentrate on killing when a certain amount of monsters were gathered. Instead, they would continue this sort of killing while continuing to drag new monsters in. Their current 20 monsters wasn't the limit. As they continued to rush forward, the pressure would continue to mount. Su Mucheng once again pulled monsters 3 times. The alarmed goblins had reached a total of 26. This was already a few more goblins gathered than when Yi Shu had done it with Blue Brook Guild. Right now, the 26 goblins were under the responsibility of 3 players. With regard to the number of monsters, the pressure obviously wasn't as great as Yi Shu pulling 26 monsters by himself. But amassing the monsters required coordination of all 3 members to complete. This was a different type of difficulty. Team coordination was always going to be more difficult than an individual display. But once it was formed, the power would be much greater. In the past few days, they were practicing this type of coordination. Although Tang Ru and Steamed Bun Invasion didn't really know how to play Glory, Yi Shu had practically drilled how to dungeon Frost Forest into them until it became second nature. At this moment, perhaps they sometimes didn't know why they should do something, but knew that it should be done. They took turns switching positions. Using blow away, knock back, knock down, etc. All sorts of attack styles were used to gather up the monsters. Apart from this, it was more important that they had clear thoughts on which ones should be killed first, which ones could let go, which ones should be on the outside, which ones should be knocked back into the launcher and elementalists' attacks. This type of diverse playing simply wasn't possible for normal players. As a result, he needed experts with high mechanical skill like Tang Ru. Steamed Bun Invasion was just slightly lower than Tang Ru's, but it was enough for this sort of situation as long as his noob disease didn't suddenly appear. Su Mucheng once again shot out and pulled 2 monsters. The total monster count reached 28. After repeatedly drilling, Tang Ru and the others had already familiarized with this tactic. Now that they had reached this step, their hearts tightened. This was because when they had practiced, the limit they had reached was 28. At this point, they would stop to kill for a bit before continuing on. But who knew that after there were 28 goblins, Su Mucheng's cleansing mist continued to run forward. After a few steps, another 2 monsters entered her firing range and without the slightest hesitation, shot at them. Ah, Tang Ru cried out in surprise. Hadn't they pulled 30 goblins? She had played together in this dungeon with this sister for 2 days. But this sister had never made a mistake. Who would have thought that she would have unexpectedly made a mistake when they were on their official record-setting run? Why are there 2 more? That's a mistake, right? Even Steamed Bun Invasion felt something wasn't right. He was already at his limit. If another goblin came, then he had no way of taking care of it. His task wasn't to only pull monsters. He had to make sure he didn't die and also had to make sure the aggro of all the monsters stayed on them. Right now, Steamed Bun Invasion had 8 goblins under his control. He wasn't able to take care of another one. It's not a mistake, continue, Yi Shu followed. 2 more, who's going to take them? Tang Ru asked. You're still okay, right? Yi Shu said. Tang Ru was currently managing 8 goblins too. But her hand speed was a bit higher than Steamed Bun Invasion's, so it should be possible for her to manage 2 more. Okay, give them to me. Tang Ru didn't say anything more. Soft Mist advanced forward and stole the aggro from the 2 goblins. She moved into position and let out a falling flower palm directly blowing them into the wave. She quickly ran back and 10 goblins were now under her control. Soon after, another gunshot rang out and Cleansing Mist once again pulled 2 more monsters. Tang Ru was surprised. 10 goblins were already extremely difficult for her. She didn't have the ability to take care of another one. Being unable to take care of it didn't mean that a single stray monster would cause them to wipe out. It meant that this unmanageable monster would get away from their attack range and would require a bit more time for them to kill it. Time. This was the most important component in this dungeon run. Killing these monsters weren't their main goal. The most important part was how to use the least amount of time to do so. I probably can't take care of them. Although Tang Ru had these doubts in her heart, with her character, if she had never tried, then she definitely wouldn't say it out loud. When there were 28 goblins, Steamed Bun Invasion pulled 8. Tang Ru also 8. Yi Shu pulled 12. He had originally pulled 4 more than them. Steamed Bun Invasion was already at his limit. He couldn't go any further. Tang Ru had just taken 2 more and reached 10. Although she still had 2 fewer than Yi Shu, she understood the difference between her and Yi Shu. However, Tang Ru didn't think that the gap was due to their differences in hand speed, but rather due to their difference in game knowledge. As a result, seeing that Yi Shu could manage 12 goblins, Tang Ru felt that she might be able to do it too. Perhaps it was because she wasn't familiar with the game, her judgment was inaccurate? These thoughts flashed by in an instant. Tang Ru had already brought Soft Mist forward, but to her surprise, Yi Shu had already rushed up first with Lord Grimm. The 2 goblins were taken by him first using what Tang Ru had done before and the 2 goblins joined the crowd. 14. This was the total number of goblins currently under Yi Shu's control. He had 6 more than Steamed Bun Invasion and 4 more than Tang Ru. Tang Ru was astonished. This person wasn't at his limit before? She still hadn't recovered yet. Another gunshot rang out and Cleansing Mist actually pulled 2 more. Don't tell me, Tang Ru had thought a rise in her heart when she saw Lord Grimm rush up again and pull another 2 monsters. His total reached 16. The gap was only because of their difference in game knowledge? Tang Ru's previous thought began to waver. But unfortunately, she wasn't next to Yi Shu right now. She really wanted to see this person's two hands and whether they were faster than hers or not. Bang! Another gunshot rang out. Tang Ru foolishly looked towards cleansing mist. She didn't want to believe that this shot was to pull monsters. This was to do damage, right? In the end, she saw cleansing mist's gun turn back before she output damage. Another 2 lively goblins rushed up. 18. This guy could still manage this many? 10. Tang Ru had difficulty dealing with them. 12. She had thoughts of trying it. 14. Was when she felt astonished. 16. She began to realize that the gap between her and Yishu wasn't only because of their difference in game knowledge. 18. Tang Ru already had no more words to describe how she was feeling. She only saw Lord Grimm rush up once again, taking in 2 more new goblins into the crowd. In an instant, Tang Ru felt like she was on an endless road. Things she didn't understand, she could learn. Experience could be accumulated. Awareness could also be raised. But hand speed. Tang Ru already felt that her hand speed was at the limit, and she finally understood that there would always be people better than her. In the end, she heard another shot ring out. Tang Ru had already become numb. Perhaps later there might even be 22, 24, 26, what was the point of fussing over it now? Sure enough, cleansing mist didn't make a mistake. Her monster-pulling tempo didn't slow down in the slightest. Don't tell me this person has no limit, Tang Ru silently said to herself. Bun. Unexpectedly, the person to rush forward this time wasn't Lord Grimm, but was actually Steamed Bun Invasion. Tang Ru was alarmed. Was this guy also bottomless? Noobs really were scary. Steamed Bun Invasion quickly brought back 2 goblins and swiftly worked. Tang Ru felt as though she were only a silent spectator. Watching and watching, she suddenly blurted out blankly, Steamed Bun, why are you missing 2? What do you mean missing 2? Steamed Bun Invasion didn't understand. Didn't you just pull 2 goblins? Tang Ru asked. Yup. Adding on to your previous 8, shouldn't you have 10? Why are there still 8? Tang Ru asked. 2 of them died just now, Steamed Bun Invasion said. The 2 players' conversation had been heard by Yishu. He just felt extremely puzzled. Exactly which one of them was the noob? Just then, Steamed Bun Invasion had killed off 2 of his goblins. Yishu was about to remind him to pull more monsters when Steamed Bun Invasion had already rushed forward. Yishu was deeply moved by Steamed Bun's quickness, then Tang Ru asked such basic question. Dead? Tang Ru hadn't recovered yet. Today, we've all switched weapons. Our damage output is greater, so the current situation is different from when we usually practiced. Right now, we don't need to stop killing monsters, we just need to keep moving forward, so fighting while killing won't be a problem. Su Mucheng appeared to have seen through Tang Ru's doubts and explained it to her. Oh, Tang Ru suddenly realized. Our usual practice was just to give an idea. Now that we all have level 25 weapons, we can finally bring out our full potential. Let's go, Su Mucheng said. Understood, Tang Ru followed. She let out a sigh. The gap between her and the noob was only because she had been muddle-headed and thinking too much. How many monsters are you pulling? Tang Ru asked Yishu. 16, Yishu said. %, and Tang Ru's cheeks streamed with tears. She wasn't dreaming before. The gap really was there. Chapter 104, Godly Skill Delivery Gun. Tang Ru's soft mist controlled 10 goblins. Steamed Bun Invasion controlled 8. Yishu's Lord Grimm controlled 16. A total of 34. The number stopped at this point and wouldn't increase any further. The cycle made from their team coordination could now be considered as officially formed. Su Mucheng never stopped pulling monsters. But from here on out, the total count of 34 goblins never increased again. This was because every time 2 goblins were pulled, 2 goblins in the crowd would die. In this monster amassing coordination, there was also a certain way to output damage. Everyone had their own roles. When they put out damage, there was a certain tempo they had to look for. Peak playing, peak coordination. With regards to the Frost Forest dungeon, with their class combination, this could be considered the limit. As long as there was no mistake. Steamed bun invasion, who had originally been the one he had been most worried about, had stayed steady, making Yi Shu feel gratified. After Tang Ru's mysterious newbie display, that sort of situation never occurred again. Su Mucheng didn't need to be worried about. Yet what made Yi Shu feel pleasantly surprised was that elementalist crowd lover. The elementalist's task was to blast and kill those gathered up goblins. Under the guarantee that it wouldn't OT, it would be best to balance the damage output. It could be said that as long as he wasn't going at it too brainlessly, then it would unlikely cause an extremely terrible disaster. But a perfectly balanced damage output only existed in theory. His role could completely deviate a bit. Making up for these deviations was a part of the cycle tactic. But Yi Shu saw that when this player made a deviation, he would correct himself and make up for the deviation. Although in the end, there was no way he could reach a perfect balance, he really did minimize the deviations. From a details perspective, this player could already be considered as at the limit. Before, in their practice sessions, this player had never done this because there was no need to. Now that he displayed it, Yi Shu discovered that this player's skill was better than he had originally thought. It looked like he was also one of the guild's peak experts. After seeing this, Yi Shu silently came to a conclusion while the scene on his screen had already turned to a different direction. The scene in front of Yi Shu changed so quickly that it was already enough to make others dizzy. This was all because he really was taking care of too many things. Besides controlling 16 goblins, he still had to observe the other 4 players and order out instructions. When Tang Ru compared herself to Yi Shu, she had completely overlooked this point. The gap between Yi Shu and her was actually a lot greater than what she had thought. We've arrived at the first boss. Cleansing Mist finally stopped pulling monsters. The monsters along the sides had all been pulled. The only other monster left in front of them was the first boss. Su Mucheng clearly understood how busy Yi Shu was. She would always send back some important information to Yi Shu to make sure he noticed it. Pull! Yi Shu's voice fell. Lord Grimm suddenly leapt up. In his right hand, he held a sharp sword. Falling light blades sliced through the air and a shockwave rippled out. All of the monsters that were gathered fell down. Tang Ru, Steamed Bun Invasion, and Crowd Lover no longer paid attention to what monsters they were supposed to control and unleashed every skill they had at their disposal. These 34 goblins had been brought all the way here and were attacked as they moved. As a result, their health had already been grinded down a large chunk. Under this storm of wild attacks, they fell down chunk after chunk as if they were being cut apart like wheat. Many goblins never stood back up. Needless to say, after a few rounds, the majority of them had been killed. The remaining goblins were attacked even more relentlessly. Facing Yi Shu and the others' skill, they could only die even quicker. The 34 goblins were instantly turned into corpses. On the other side, gun sounds rang out in waves. Cleansing Mist had already pulled the first boss over. The 4 players' viewpoints turned and saw that Cleansing Mist was currently lifting a giant heavy machine gun and ferociously firing towards the sky. The bullets and smoke that flew out lined up into a diagonal line, hitting the first boss goblin patrol guard in the air. This goblin patrol guard really did look like it was being barbecued, rolling around in the air. It then fell rumbling down towards the 4 players. Minnesota, seeing this scene, Tang Ru and Steamed Bun Invasion didn't think anything of it. This guy, who was unworthy of his name because he didn't like to join the crowd looking for fun, suddenly yelled it out in astonishment. Is it delivery gun? Crowd Lover didn't yell this out. It only rolled about in his heart for a second before the goblin patrol guard fell in front of them. The 3 immediately rushed forward to attack. Crowd Lover also immediately began throwing out spells, but his astonishment still lingered in his mind. His character glanced at Cleansing Mist quite a few times. Delivery gun. This was a term for a type of gunner move. The term meant that the target would be delivered to a desired location via continuous firing. The effects between deliver gun and aerial fire could be considered opposite of one another. However, this move had no prominent effects for the launcher. When comparing these 2 moves, delivery gun could be considered far more difficult to execute than aerial fire. Everyone could talk about the theory of delivery gun, but only a few could actually execute it. This was a skill that not even all pro players could grasp perfectly. Put into the normal player community, this was even more of a godly skill. To be able to execute it occasionally could already be considered enough to brag about. It has to be known that in order to have the target move to a desired location, the gunshot must hit a certain spot. And where is that certain spot? Just this point required an incredible amount of practice to accumulate enough experience to make an accurate judgment. Secondly, the target had to be accurately hit on this exact spot while it was moving through the air. This was another extremely difficult point. Next, these two steps weren't just a one-time thing. They had to be done repeatedly. In this way, normal players could only move the target through the air like a blind cat running into a dead mouse. Moving the target to a desired location and so on. How many pro players could do that? The current number 1 Glory player Joe Sakai reached great heights with the move delivery gun. In one performance, he directly delivered the target all the way up to heaven. The host cried out a "shot my eyes blind" in surprise, and hilarity ensued. Crowd Lover only saw the end of Cleansing Mist's barbecue. But the Goblin Patrol Guard had actually been delivered in front of them. Could it be a coincidence? Although using barbecue to execute delivery gun was a somewhat cheap trick, it was still enough to make others astonished. Crowd Lover couldn't calm down for a very long time and would turn his viewpoint to look towards Cleansing Mist whenever there was a chance to. He had already put Lord Grim, Soft Mist, and Steam Bun Invasion into his eyes. Their mechanical skill really was extremely exceptional. But Soft Mist and Steam Bun Invasion were still novices at Glory. Crowd Lover could still see this. As for Cleansing Mist, he had never found anything special about her. The hardest task she had to do was only grasping a good tempo for pulling monsters. It was about the same as him paying attention to balancing his damage output. It wasn't that complicated. This ostensible delivery gun made Crowd Lover extremely taken aback. Yishu's judgment of Crowd Lover wasn't wrong. The current Crowd Lover wasn't any ordinary player. He wasn't the actual Crowd Lover. At this moment, he was only using this account. He was Tyrannical Ambition's true head, guild leader Zhang Yu. Zhang Yu had heard of Lord Grim from Cold Knight's report. Cold Knight had described this player as if he were a god. After seeing him and mixing in with him for a few days, he discovered that this player certainly wasn't simple. However, at this moment, Zhang Yu's attention had been sucked into that ostensible delivery gun. This was all because this godly skill was a water divide. The only ones that could use this move were almost all pro players. While he was currently thinking of this, he suddenly heard Lord Grim, Cleansing Mist, "What did you do to pull the boss just a moment ago?" "Hee, delivery gun, did you see it?" "I saw a ghost. We're trying to set a dungeon record." "Don't make trouble," Lord Grim said. "I've snatched quite a few seconds this time," Cleansing Mist said. "If you had hit the boss into the woods, how many seconds would we have lost?" Lord Grim said. Cleansing Mist was silent. "Don't mess around. Steadily set the new record." "Oh," Cleansing Mist answered. "So this girl acted out on her own and did it accidentally?" Zhang Yu thought this. It was true that a launcher could sometimes execute delivery gun by luck using barbecue. Of course, what he didn't know was that when he saw the delivery gun for the first time and yelled out *Minnesota, Yishu busily typed out a message to Su Mucheng. "Don't use delivery gun." "What? You'll expose yourself. You idiot." Delivery gun, this move, truly wasn't convenient to use. This was all because this skill was too much of an indication. The number of players that could use this skill was very few. If someone tried looking for a female launcher among the pro players that could do this, the answer would simply pop out. And then what? A pro player came to set a dungeon record. A pro player from Excellent Era came to help Tyrannical Ambition set a new dungeon record. The record broken was Excellent Dynasties. If any of these message came out, it would attract lots of criticism and trouble. Yishu regretted forgetting to remind Su Mucheng this. "Oh, then I won't use it." It wasn't as if Su Mucheng didn't understood all this. It's just that she didn't care. She only wanted to help Yishu smoothly set a new record, that was all. For her, this record was most important. But Yishu had taken note that Crowd Lover had began keeping an eye on cleansing mist frequently. You have to justify yourself, Yishu hurriedly sent Su Mucheng a message. Only then did they have the small discussion just before. They didn't need to prepare any sort of script. With their understanding of each other, just winging it was fine. Once the dialogue ended, everyone continued to intensify their attacks onto the Goblin Patrol Guard. Yishu continued to pay attention to Crowd Lover's actions. At long last, he no longer saw him keeping an eye on cleansing mist anymore. That should be enough. Yishu let out a sigh. Chapter 105, A Staggering Blow. The dungeoning continued. Fighting the first boss Goblin Patrol Guard was very brainless. Besides dodging its violent physical strikes, there was nothing else to think about. Although these sorts of high-damage attacks would make normal players terrified, against players with high mechanical skill, it was just a toy. At this moment, the Goblin Patrol Guard's aggro was entirely on Lord Grimm and was running around in circles. The 5 players opened fire with all of their might, and in a short moment, the first boss was mowed down. No one stopped for a rest. Everyone went straight forward towards the following path. No one looked at what the boss dropped. This was something Yishu had explained earlier. Every second counted in setting a new record. There was no time to waste. Picking up dropped items meant that they had to crouch down and then get back up. And would still need 1 or 2 seconds. The path after the first boss and the opening path weren't too different. The 5 players used the same method as they had in the opening path. Steamed Bun Invasion was still Yishu's main focus. Over the course of his leading, 8 out of 10 instructions were to Steamed Bun Invasion. God, you talk so much. What astrological sign are you? Steamed Bun Invasion's words almost made Yishu die from laughter. It took him a while to recover before saying, Steamed Bun. You're our team's secret weapon. Everyone is counting on you. Oh, secret weapon? That's pretty good, Steamed Bun Invasion said ecstatically. Play well. Pay attention when you use strangle, Yishu said. Got it, Steamed Bun Invasion radiated with delight. Saying that Steamed Bun Invasion was their secret weapon wasn't something Yishu said just to trick him. The Brawler level 15 skill Strangle didn't do a lot of damage, but Strangle's effect of reducing the target's armor by 50% was extremely useful. Although the effect only lasted 2 seconds, in these 2 seconds, the party could do an incredible amount of damage. Moreover, because skills could level up every 5 levels, now that Steamed Bun Invasion was level 25, Strangle was level 3. With the Fighter Claw's additional attribute of +1 to Strangle, Strangle was now level 4 and its effect would last 3.5 seconds. Frost Forest's highest level boss was only level 25, so there was no level suppression. The effect could be fully displayed in these 3.5 seconds. It was equivalent of giving the entire party 3.5 seconds of an additional 50% damage to their attacks. The first boss Goblin Patrol Guard had been strangled by Steamed Bun Invasion 3 times. This was equivalent to giving the entire party 10 seconds of burst, saving them a considerable amount of time. While they were dealing with the small monsters on the side of the path, Steamed Bun Invasion would use his strangle whenever it was off cooldown. The entire party would then immediately switch focus onto the strangled target. While doing this, Steamed Bun Invasion also had a hard time. This was because the user wasn't invincible when strangle was used. The target wasn't stunned and unable to move. The strangled target could use both hands to struggle and attack. But just like how its defense dropped, the strangled target would also have its attack reduced by 50%. If it wasn't like this, the previous Goblin Patrol Guard would have thrashed Steamed Bun Invasion with its Barbed Wolf Fang Club long ago. The second boss, Su Mucheng, reminded everyone and then went to pull it. This time she did it normally without using delivery gun. The boss rushed out and the 4 players flipped over the crowd of goblins they had been fighting. The 4 dashed up to gang up and beat on the second boss. Steamed Bun Invasion continued to use Strangle and the second boss defeated in the blink of an eye. They also didn't make any mistakes in the path after that. Finally, they reached the Frost Forest's final boss, Frost Thane. They had already talked plenty about how they were going to fight in the past few days. Without saying anything further, the first one to rush up was Tangru's Soft Mist. Frost Thane sensed it. It raised its blade and quickly moved up to face her. Soft Mist ran diagonally around to Frost Thane's side. Not waiting for Frost Thane to turn its body, she slashed up diagonally with a sky strike and Frost Thane was knocked into the air. Soft Mist went up and continued to attack. Adding on the chasers, the combo she made was even greater than what Lord Grim had done before. The juggled Frost Thane obviously couldn't bear it and promptly teleported away. Yi Shu had already been waiting for this. He had been paying attention to its teleport direction the entire time. He used a shadow clone technique to instantly move there. Right when Frost Thane teleported over, Lord Grim welcomed it with Sky Strike. It was once again knocked into the air. Steamed Bun, Yi Shu yelled. Steamed Bun Invasion shot forward. He raised his hands and grasped. The level 4 strangle accurately clamped onto Frost Thane's throat. Nice, Yi Shu praised. He turned his body and followed up with 3 skill attacks. Soft Mist's Battle Lance, Cleansing Mist's Artillery Shells, and Crowd Lover's Magic also arrive. Even Steamed Bun Invasion was smashing Frost Thane's head with a brick, causing Frost Thane to shriek again and again. Frost Thane's body was small and light. It didn't have any strength to resist the strangle. It had been attacked for a full 3.5 seconds, not even 0.1 seconds short. Lord Grim's level 25 Myriad Manifestation Umbrella Lance form was much stronger than everyone else's level 25 purple weapon. With its white lance tip, little snowflakes seemed to twinkle with every swing. 3.5 seconds quickly passed and in the process, Steamed Bun Invasion had been hit by Frost Thane's blade 2 times. NPCs weren't so stupid that it would resolutely search for an aggro target after being seized by such a skill. Usually, it would be whoever had grasped it. From this perspective, Strangle could be considered a strong aggro shifting taunt skill. However, normally, using this skill to save the show depended on the user's careful judgment. The Brawler class didn't have as high of a defense as a Knight. Even if the target's attack was reduced by 50%, fearlessly being attacked by the boss for a few seconds wasn't good. This pitiful Frost Thane wasn't so strong. After being strangled, it looked like it was struggling. Once the 3.5 seconds quickly passed, Steamed Bun Invasion immediately drank a potion to recover health after letting go. This wasn't the beginner village's most basic potion. This was provided by Tyrannical Ambition. Their alchemists had crafted middle-grade potions suitable for level 20 players to use. After Frost Thane had been released, it immediately looked for its aggro target, Soft Mist. But Lord Grim's weapon was tyrannical. In a few hits, its aggro was stolen onto him. These aggro problems weren't anything to worry about. Everyone on the field was a highly skilled player. They all had the skill level to serve as the mount. Frost Thane moved quickly, but under these players' besiegement, it had already been beaten black and blue and was nearly unable to dodge any of the attacks. Even when Steamed Bun Invasion's Strangle was on cooldown, he still used normal attacks. He went up to punch and kick, displaying a brawler's way of fighting. The level 25 skill Apply Poison had already been put onto his claw and onto the Frost Thane's body. Frost Thane shrieked again and again. Under this situation, it wanted to teleport again. But in the end, even though it teleported, Lord Grim was waiting for him there and his battle lance cut upwards, knocking it into the air. Yi Shu yelled another Steamed Bun, and Steamed Bun Invasion dashed forward. Frost Thane once again had its throat clutched like a struggling chicken. In a short while, Frost Thane's life had already hit red blood. But this party already knew how to deal with it once it reached red blood. When they received their purple weapons, they had to adjust to the changes when clearing the small monsters. But against the boss, they just had to fight like they always did. In addition, they were all mechanically skilled experts, so they weren't afraid of making a mistake against the quick Frost Thane like ordinary experts were. As a result, Frost Thane's summoned Ice Whirlwind never unfurled. It had been oppressed by the 5 players from start to finish. Finally, after another strangle by Steamed Bun Invasion, it unwillingly died in Steamed Bun Invasion's hands. Dungeon clear. The system announcement popped up at the same time. Congratulations to Tyrannical Ambition players, Crowd Lover, Lord Grim, Cleansing Mist, Steam Bun Invasion, Soft Mist for breaking the Frost Forest clear record. Time, 13 hours 5 minutes and 47 seconds. Success. The 5 players all had their own reactions. Steamed Bun Invasion saw the system announcement and laughed out loud. Ha 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 ha, I'm on TV. Secret weapon. Tang Ru opened up the dungeon record leaderboards and saw her name on the record. She felt extremely satisfied. And Su Mu Cheng? She just silently smiled, sitting in front of the screen. As for Yi Shu, the noob steamed bun actually never made a mistake. This made him feel extremely excited. In comparison, Crowd Lover's reaction was relatively ordinary. After all, the person using this account was the Grand Tyrannical Ambitions Guild leader. It was just a Frost Forest dungeon and nothing more. Although it was very astonishing, dancing around in excitement was a bit too exaggerated. Tyrannical Ambitions Guild channel was naturally bustling with excitement. Everyone energetically praised these 5 players' might. It looked like no one saw the message Crowd Lover had sent before, that no one in the party would see their messages. Right when Yi Shu was about to say a few words to everyone, a window suddenly popped up on his screen. Area C number 84 wanted 2 colas. He helplessly got up and delivered 2 colas to them. While returning, he saw Tang Ru hanging around the reception desk. After seeing him, she asked him, "This record should be the limit, right?" "Limit? I can't say that." "It's still not the limit?" "Why not?" Tang Ru asked. "Because our party didn't have the most optimal class combination," Yi Shu said. Although any combination could clear a dungeon, when seeking efficiency, in the end, there was still a most optimal class combination for each dungeon. Yi Shu's party couldn't be considered it. But their opponents, Excellent Dynasty's party, also weren't in the most optimal class combination. It was just to clear a mere Frost Forest. As a pro player, how could Lu Hao and the others care so much? What's more, each pro player had their own class that they were most proficient in. If they temporarily switched classes, it would be just like how in soccer a rear guard ran to play as the forward. Although their basic qualities were still there, their performance was an entirely different matter. Speaking of Lu Hao and the others and their class combination, although their combination wasn't the best, it was actually better than Yi Shu's party by a bit. However, regretfully, Lu Hao and the others weren't going all out. This was because they simply didn't think that any pro-level expert would compete with them in this dungeon. With regards to them, this was just a record against normal players. It was just a simple and easy task. A casual performance was good enough. He didn't go at it 100%. But Yi Shu's side? Seeing their record and then trying their hardest to beat it, broke their record. Lu Hao had been pitifully struck a staggering blow on this dungeon record. This was all because he was in the light, while Yi Shu was in the dark.